right, good afternoon to you, and you're welcome to Good Afternoon Ghana. And this afternoon, what we have for you on the table, of course, has to do with our fuel prices that we're dealing with today. Most of the interviews that we've conducted and the explanation we're getting is that they are very largely dependent on the external forces or factors. So these external forces or factors that we have very little control over, what is it that we have advantage over or control over within our own economy that we can use to control and prevent or avoid the impact of the high fuel prices that we are faced with today? This is Good Afternoon Ghana. My name is Ania Fampofu. We'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll start the discussion with the guests that we have on the decks today. I will be speaking with Edward Bawa and also Abass Ibrahim will join us, and then Duncan Amo will also join us, and then Abass Moro, also of the DVLA, will join us. So a lot on the table this afternoon. I'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana. We're tackling the issue of fuel prices, and this morning fuel prices at some fuel stations continue to rise, crossing the 8 cedi per litre mark at the first week of March 2020. Now, this is expected to have a ripple effect on the other oil marketing companies, which will also adjust their prices upwards. Right now, there's a bit of some competition. If you check the total, pump price, it's already crossed the 8 cedis. Goil is hovering around 7 cedis, and some pesos, others are also around the same figure. So let's see what will really be the factor to push the rest of them to join total at the 8 mark that it has crossed this morning. So I have been joined in the studio with Ibrahim Abass Moro, who is a National Communications Officer for GPRTU. You're welcome. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you. And also, Benjamin Nsiah is the head of research, and he is actually replacing Duncan Amo of COPEC. He's also here. You're welcome. Thank you. Good afternoon to you. But I have on the Zoom Abass Ibrahim Tasunti. He is the head of pricing at NPA. Abass, you're welcome. Good afternoon to you as well. I'll start off with you because you joined quite early. Thank you for joining us. As head of pricing at MPA, is it that we cannot do anything about how the fuel prices are rising?
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome. Good afternoon to my listeners and my fellow panelists. As head of pricing, like you said, as a regulator, our role in the pricing of petroleum products is to ensure that the petroleum products are priced in accordance with the prescribed petroleum pricing formula. So that is the work MPA does. The important...
Okay, I'm just having some interactions on there. We're having Abass Ibrahim Tasunti from NPA. Abass, can you hear me? We're having some interference there. Hello, Abass. Okay. Edward Bawa is okay. So Abass, I'm told, is off, but let's see. Edward Bawa is a member of Parliament's Mines and Energy Committee. He has joined us as well. Edward, you're welcome. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. Let me also move from Abass and come to you, Edward. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great.
I can hear you.
Okay. So with our earlier interviews on the fuel prices that is, going up now, one thing that is very common is the fact that we have international factors that, of course, we don't have any control over. The forex and, of course, the prices of fuel on the international market. We know we export fuel, so we should have some control over the market, or we should have some advantage if the prices go up. And then we also know that the taxes on fuel, petroleum products, we can't do something about it. It's all being directed to your table as Parliament. Why can't Parliament push for some of these control, to be enacted?
I'm not too sure exactly when you say controls to be enacted. But good afternoon. Basically, let me make an attempt to see if I understood your question. First and foremost, the best Parliament can do is to advocate. That is the best Parliament can do, because the three factors that actually hinge on our petroleum export prices, the price of the crude in the international market, that will come to what they call it, something that is not within the sector, within the control of the government. Issues of taxes that falls directly under government. Then the issue of our forex, that's what they call the exchange rate. That is also within the control of the state, because the central bank is responsible for ensuring that we have a very stable government, because they are in charge of monetary policy. So it falls within them. So if you have these three factors, I've heard people make the case that we have no control over what they call it, the crude prices, and they use that as a basis to talk about the price, the hype. But the truth of the matter is this: let's use the second factor, which is our exchange rate. In the last 2 months, the cedi has depreciated by 7.6%.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is now the worst performing currency on the African continent. Obviously, this is going to affect how the pumps behave, because we sell our products in cedis, but we buy our products, we import our products in dollars. And so anytime the cedi depreciates against the dollar, there's always a forex loss. That forex loss is a liability that will definitely not be borne by the marketers, will not be borne by the bulk distributors. It will definitely be borne by somebody. And the person who will bear that will obviously be the consumer. Because you recall, before the deregulation period, when government was setting up prices, one of the things that was a headache for the state was the fact that anytime there was a forex loss liability, that had to be dealt with, and it was not passed on to the consumer. The state had to look for money to pay for that loss. So you have a situation where that is an area that government should have been very serious with, in terms of trying to control the behavior of the cedi as against the major currency. That's one. Two, I have made the point. I think this morning my senior colleague, Honorable Governor Donko, corrected me on that, on the fact that actually I thought even the benchmark revenue that was set up for the 2022 budget was $62, but it appears it's even $52. If that is the case, it means that what government has indicated clearly is that I am saying that if the crude prices do not go below $52 per barrel, I should be able to hit my petroleum revenues for the year. That is what it means. Now, as we speak, as of this morning, I think Brent was going for around $111 per barrel. So it means that we are almost doing twice what we were expecting to get in terms of our revenues, because of the price of the way the crude prices are behaving on the international market. I have always made this argument that if that is the case, is it possible that government could offset that with, say, some of the taxes on the downstream? I use the typical example of two, because you see, post the ex-refinery price, we have a series of taxes. We have the energy debt recovery levy, road fund levy, energy fund levy, price stabilization and recovery levy, sanitation and pollution levy, energy sector recovery levy, special petroleum tax, primary distribution margin, bus margin, fuel market margin. These are the things that then come to give you to what we call the ex-depot price. So if these are the series of taxes that are there, is it possible to make an account? We should audit these particular taxes and see which of the taxes, to a very large extent, we can do without. And because all these tax standards that have been produced here, it is always said that they are supposed to come and fund some particular activity. For example, they told us that the sanitation and pollution levy was supposed to come and make sure that our environment was clean, isn't it? I've always made this argument that, look, if you take the District Assembly's Common Fund that is released to all the districts, on quarterly basis, at the national levels, at the centralized level, that's at the District Assembly's Common Fund level, a total of 120,000 Ghana cedis is withdrawn, is taken from all assemblies. And the purpose of it is that 80,000 Ghana cedis is for fumigation, and 40,000 is for what they call sanitation improvement program. So it gives you a total of 120,000 Ghana cedis per assembly. Now, every village, every cottage, every city, every town falls under either a municipal, a district, or a metropolitan assembly. If Ghanaians through their assemblies are already paying for sanitation and fumigation, why would, for want of a better, why would the state be double charging us again with the issue of sanitation and pollution levy? That becomes a challenge that I'm not able to apply. So this is something that if we took it off, at least the assembly still could fund the issues of what they call sanitation problems for us. Two, I have said that, look, the SPT, that's the special petroleum tax, has actually outlived its usefulness. At the time that it was introduced, when it was introduced as a tax handle on our system, it was at a time when the prices of crude oil had gone down very drastically, at least I think that time it was about $30 per barrel. Two, in terms of our production levels, our projected production levels had been compromised because we had a challenge with the FPSO and Chroma. And so our production levels had also gone down. So the factors of low prices and then the tax, and then the volumes that were producing conspired to undermine our petroleum revenue targets. Fast forward, we have gone beyond that. And indeed, if you look at the time that it was set up, we gave a sunset clause that by the end of 2017, prices of crude would have recovered. And then the price, in terms of our production levels, would have also gone up. So on the basis of that, that tax could be taken off. This government has come to extend it. I don't have a problem with that. But you have a situation where the arguments that are being given are no longer tenable. They're not tenable in the sense that we produce almost, God knows, almost in the excess of about $180,000 barrels. We have crude prices that are hovering, are flirting around the areas of $100 per barrel. And so there are some windfalls that government is making.
Yeah.
Is it possible that government could look at that? My last point is that, you see, there's a tax there, there's a levy there that is known as Energy Sector Recovery Levy.
Yeah.
The reason why government introduced this during the mid-year review, of 2021, I think so, or was it 2020? I'm not too sure. Was the fact that they indicated that our generating plants that were incurring what they call capacity charges. Capacity charges is the fact that after a generator, maybe let's say Asoge or whatever, declares availability and you are not able to dispatch it, then you need to pay a minimum amount of money that will take care of their investments. That is what they call the capacity charges. But capacity charges are not paid automatically. One, the plant must be available and ready to dispatch before you can do that. Over the period, we have come to realize that anytime one plant goes down, bang, we always have power crisis. It tells you that we do not have excess capacity in the system. That is a very fundamental thing.
Right.
Two, when the Minister of Finance was asked in Parliament, was asked to come and tell us how much they had paid in terms of capacity charges, he came and bundled out some figures. When he bundled out those figures, the Chamber of Independent Power Producers issued a statement and said those monies that the Minister of Finance had indicated that they had come to pay were actually monies for power consumed and not for excess capacity. And so it is an area that we need to be very objective, because if you look, because of excess capacity, they are charging us 20 pesos per liter on the petroleum products.
Right.
So I'm just trying to tell you that if government were to look at all these factors and then also look at the issue of stabilizing the cedi against the dollar, we should be able to ameliorate the challenges that are being visited upon what they call the Ghanaians.
Right. Let me engage Abass Ibrahim, who has joined us. Tasunti. He is of NPA. Abass, you're back. Thank you. So Edward Bawa is saying that the argument that we keep making about the international factors that we have no control over doesn't hold anymore because of also the factors that we have been able to establish in the country. How do you respond to that?
Thank you very much. So I was earlier explaining to you the mandate NPA plays in the pricing of petroleum products. There have been arguments about what governments can do, and I believe governments can actually do a number of things. But we as NPA, we have a mandate that we have to ensure we go by. And the pricing of petroleum products, like I explained, has a formula. NPA's mandate is to ensure that this formula is being applied accordingly by the petroleum service providers. Here we are talking about the importers who are the bulk import distribution companies, and then the oil marketing companies who sell at the pumps. So if you look at this prescribed petroleum pricing formula, what goes into it? It's actually the cost of fuel on the world market. The exchange rate has a role to play there. The cost of delivery it into Ghana is also in there. And then the taxes and levies that are imposed by Parliament, once they are imposed, they have to also reflect in this formula before you add the distribution margins. So we as a regulator have to make sure that everyone that's pricing petroleum products in Ghana here goes by this formula. So for us, ensuring that this formula is applied, we have to ensure there's full cost recovery of investment. So if an importer brings in products to supply, the price builder has to make sure that they recover their investments. Also, if you're an oil marketing company and you are supplying here in Ghana, the price builder has to allow you to recover your investment to continue to do business. You also have to make sure that the consumer is also protected because the market is regulated in particular. You have to make sure that if they are pricing, they are not shortchanging consumers, and therefore consumers are getting value for money. So if you look at the role NPA plays here, in terms of what kind of taxes to impose on petroleum products or what kind of taxes to take out of the formula, that is not something NPA decides. NPA for us, we have to go by what the law says. So every tax or every levy in the price border is bound by an act of Parliament. So anytime the government of the day submits any bill to Parliament to introduce a tax and explains the reason for that introduction of that tax and it is passed by Parliament, we can only make sure that that tax is in the formula. So for us, we as MP cannot respond to what government is supposed to do and what government is not supposed to do in terms of the suggestions. If we look at the various taxes we have in the formula, because each of them has a purpose, what we could do as MPA was we looked at the price stabilization and recovery levy, for example, and we realized that prices were rising. And the act says that this levy can be used to cushion consumers when the need arises. In addition to it being used to pay for the subsidies on premix fuel, which is used by fishermen, and also residual fuel oil, which is used by the industries. So once the prices started rising steeply, we advised governments to kind of remove it from the price border as a way of cushioning the consumer, as the law says. And that was done for a period of 3 months. But because it continues to pay for the subsidies that still exist on premix fuel and residual fuel oil, there's a limit to which this tax can be used or this levy can be used. And that's how come it was brought back. Because if the subsidies cannot be paid, and this is the source of the revenue for the subsidy, then what it means is that the suppliers of premix fuel and the suppliers of residual fuel oil will not be able to supply these products. And you agree with me that the consumer will want to have the product available at all times. Then we can now look at what goes into the pricing. So we don't want the shortages to occur, and that therefore the levy has to come back. But if today Parliament passes any law to either repeal any tax or levy in the price border or introduce a new levy, MP does not have the mandate to decide which of them should be in the formula or not.
Yeah, that's very, very clear. How do we explain to the ordinary person that we are supposed to be benefiting from windfall, but we don't benefit? Because you're talking about full cost recovery. How do you do that explanation to the person to understand that, well, the MPA's hands are really tight?
So if we refer to rainfall, I'm assuming you are talking about the revenue that is generated from the export of crude oil. If that's what you're talking about, then this also is not within the purview of MPA. Crude oil receipts are not handled by MPA. MPA regulates the downstream petroleum industry of Ghana, which excludes the upstream. So whatever revenue government gets from the crude oil export goes to the Ministry of Finance, who are the managers of the economy. So the Ministry of Finance decides how those monies are used. If the government decides that they want to use that rainfall to cushion the consumer and by removing certain taxes or reducing certain taxes, that would be we as a regulator will just do what government has access to.
Let me come into the studio and engage you. You've been nodding your head, and you have given us a period within which we should be expecting that by close of March, we should be buying at 9 cedis per barrel. But why are you nodding your head to what he's saying? I mean, we want to find a solution to it.
I'm nodding because I think most of the questions you asking Abass, the MPA doesn't have answers to them. I think the right person to answer some of these questions. Yeah, the right person to answer some of these questions is the Minister of Finance and then the Finance Ministry, because they put these acts and then taxes and levies. Maybe the MPA's purview will be around some of the margins that they also have based on some of the airlines that established the MPA. They can also do something about it. But most of the questions you asked, Abass has no knowledge about them and cannot answer them.
Yeah.
However, I want to maybe, if you may permit me to correct certain things. I heard senior colleague Edward Bawa say that if you look at the budget projected that we're going to, our benchmark pricing, that is what we're going to export our products. He said 52. I think the budget, right, objectively, the budget stated 61.23, that is $61.23 per barrel. In the sense that if you look at 2021, averagely Ghana sold our product at $66 per barrel. Now, he also mentioned that some of the taxes, yes, COPEC calls for a reduction of some of these taxes. If Abass is here and he agrees with me that since the introduction of these taxes in 2015, the sector has been growing, that is, consumption has been growing. So at even a constant tax rate of 46 pesos or maybe 41 pesos, so far as consumption is growing, your revenue from these particular downstream is also growing. For example, in 2015, our consumption for diesel, which is gas oil, was around 1.9 billion. As we're speaking today, Abass has the figures. It's around 2.94 billion liters, which means there's a growth. So even at a constant tax at that time, revenue realization also increased. Now, if you take petrol, for example, petrol also, in 2015, when ESLA was introduced, was about 1.5 billion. That is 1.55 billion. Today, as we're speaking, petrol alone is around 2.22 billion liters. So it tells you that when the growth or the consumption of these products increase, your revenue component also increases.
Or the profit margin.
Yes, increase. So the question we ask ourselves is that if consumption is increasing and revenue is increasing, why should government introduce additional tax components on the build-up? For example, if you look at the original act, and Abass knows it, the ESLA, Energy Sector Levy Act, the original act, energy debt recovery levy was 41 pesos per liter. Somewhere in 2019, even though there's growth in consumption of products, which means that revenue realization from the downstream, petroleum downstream also grew, government increased these particular tax component, which is 41 pesos per liter to 49 pesos per liter in 2019. Now, if you take that 41 to 49, government came back again in same 2019 and then increased road fund from 40 to 48. Price stabilization, as he mentioned, government increased it from 12 pesos per liter to 16 pesos per liter on petrol and then 10 pesos per liter on diesel to 14 pesos per liter on diesel. So it tells you that even though consumption is increasing and government is realizing much more revenue from this sector, government intentionally increases other components on the build-up to realize what certain revenue we don't even know what they are meant for. He mentioned that most of these levies were established for a purpose, but as I sit here as a researcher at COPEC, we don't actually know what we are paying for. We don't know what we are paying for. Now, Senior Edward Bawa also mentioned in 2021 budget, government introduced two taxes. Energy Sector Recovery Levy, which is 20 pesos per liter, and then Sanitation and Pollution Levy, which is 10 pesos per liter. Now, if you go back to the original act, the energy debt recovery levy, I said, was 41 pesos per liter. In that 41 pesos per liter, you were paying 28 pesos per liter for the power sector.
Oh, okay.
Right? In that 41 energy debt recovery levy, in that particular original act of 2015, 899, you were paying 28 pesos. In 2019, government increased it to 36. And then in 2021, government comes again with a different name, Energy Sector Recovery Levy, which is 20 pesos. So you are paying 56 pesos for only the energy the
and
power
we
sector.
still have the other 40. How much for the energy sector levy? What
So this is it. So if you take the original act 899, Energy Debt Recovery Levy, even though we had deregulated the sector, government said that they were going to use 5 pesos for under recoveries. The 5 pesos for under recoveries, 8 pesos for toll debt recovery levy, a levy we have been paying since 2003 through what we call Toll Debt Recovery Levy Act 642. We have been paying that since 2003. Government introduced that in 2015. So when you add the 5 to 8, that will give you 13, right? And then government comes to say again that 28 pesos goes to the power sector, which is, so if you add all, only energy debt recovery levy in 2015 was 41 pesos. And these are the distributions. Now, 41 pesos, somewhere down the line in 2019, government increased it from 41 to 49, even though consumption has increased. Because when consumption increases, which means your revenue realization will also increase. I hope you get it.
Yeah.
Now, when you take road fund, in 2015, it was 40 pesos per liter, and Abass knows it. In 2019, government increased it to 48, 8 pesos in addition. If you take price stabilization, as he mentioned, which we don't even know what subsidies, because we at COPEC don't support any subsidy in the downstream, and that is our position. Government increased it from 12 pesos in 2015, in 2019, to 16 pesos on petrol. So only in 2019, government introduced 20 pesos. Now government comes again in 2021 budget and says that, oh, there's certain debt in the energy sector, especially the power sector. So we are reintroducing another 20 pesos. So whenever you buy a liter of petrol or diesel, you, the petroleum consumer, you are paying 56 pesos to the power sector. The question we ask as COPEC, we ask is that, is power subsidized in this country? And I'll be glad if you ask in Bawa, is power subsidized? If power is not subsidized, why should the petroleum consumer be continuously paying for certain debt in the power sector?
Which we are not actually feeling the impact of
Impact of it.
Bawa, are you there? Hello, Edward.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, so have you heard the issues raised by Benjamin? And if you can quickly respond to them.
No, basically, I shouldn't be the one responding to these things. I may, because,
so we're asking you to respond to it because, of course, you are in Parliament. You are on the committee as well. So some of these issues definitely are on your table.
Yeah, so the point is that even when these tax handles were introduced, we kicked against it. We kicked against these tax handles. One, first and foremost, let me state very clearly that government is not transparent when it comes to reasons underpinning the introduction of tax handles. They're not transparent. If you look at the energy sector recovery levy that had come, that had been introduced, you recall that I told you earlier on that the whole idea of capacity charges, which is supposed to be the component of the power sector that this particular levy is supposed to fund, has not been transparent. We are not too sure what the accumulation of this capacity charges, what is even the quantity, what is this animal called capacity charges, and how much has been accrued. Indeed, at the committee level, we have had a case task. There is always, we will come and give you a special presentation on capacity charges, what. I mean, it's just not simply not transparent. And I am convinced, and Annie, take it from me, I am convinced that even though these tax handles have been introduced for certain purposes, they are not used for what they have been introduced. And we have history to that. You recall that Benjamin was making the point that in 2003, when they introduced what we call the third debt recovery levy, when they introduced that, all of us knew that it was supposed to be used to retire the indebtedness of TOR, particularly even to the commercial banks. They were supposed to use it for that. You and the media, you recall that we finally got to realize in the course of audit reports and other things that the third debt recovery levy was being used to pay some incentives to media houses, the editors of media houses. You recall that this was what under Minister Asamoah's time. So I am just trying to tell you that there are situations where we do not know how transparent these figures are.
Are you suggesting that the toll recovery levy revenue that was generated in that was being used to pay some media what?
I am not the one saying it. It was an audit report that came out. That I mentioned the name of the minister. The minister was Asamoah.
Okay, you're making reference to the audit. Okay, all right.
Yes. So that is the first thing. Two, we have said that if you look at the price stabilization and recovery levy that Ben was talking about, it had been increased to 16 pesos per liter of petrol, 14 pesos per liter of diesel and 14 pesos per kilogram of LPG. In these particular, we have even said that we need to know transparently from 2017 till now how much have we been, how much has been accrued.
Yes, but is that
Government
something the committee cannot demand?
I'm just trying to make the point to you that consistently this thing is done and these questions are asked of government, and government has always been elusive about it because the government simply has refused to be transparent. That's just all. They have just refused to be transparent. Meanwhile, you're asking Ghanaians to pay. Look, today, Abass is here. Maybe you may need to ask Abass. My senior colleague again, Honorable Kobna Donko, I've drawn my attention to something. The RFO, the residual fuel, oil that we subsidize. If you look, we are subsidized to almost about 70% of the figure. The question is, what is the rationale behind the subsidies that we pay on the RFO? What is the rationale behind it? Because you ask NPA, the NPA tells you that even though part of the price stabilization and recovery levy is supposed to be used in stabilizing prices at the pump because of the volatility nature of it, when you talk to them, they tell you consistently that they use it to fund two line items, premix and then RFO. And indeed, if you look at the statement that was issued by NPA when they were reintroducing the price stabilization and recovery levy after the 2-month suspension, they have said that if they did not introduce it, they were going to accumulate some liabilities because they will not be able to subsidize premix and then RFO. So, Annie, the question still remains. The finance ministry must come out clear to tell us transparently, actually, whether these tax handles that have been introduced, they are using them for the same purpose, and whether if we take them out, we'll still not be able to perform the functions that we are performing. Government has control to do these things. And say for any serious government, you have been saying that a lot of businesses have gone through challenges. You have been saying that Ghanaians have gone through challenges because of COVID. And so on the strength of that, they simply do not have the wherewithal, as it were, to be able to survive. Some of them are just barely living. If that is the case, and you know that fuel prices have a direct effect on, transport fares. Transport fares has a cascading effect on almost every item. Don't you think that it is only sensible that government will begin to start telling us a strategy of how to, how to ensure that the areas that I have control over, I find a way of dealing with those ones.
Yeah.
And I think that, if the government, and in fact, the part that is even more worrying is that when the government, the finance minister was frustrated about the issue of the passage of the e-levy, he threatened Ghanaians that he was even going to slap an additional tax on petroleum.
On petroleum, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you don't threaten people with people who are already desperate and they are struggling to survive. You don't threaten them with these things.
Right. Edward, hold on there. And that's where I'll come to Moro, Abass. So we already have received threats, and we've heard from you. You are also giving us another threat that if you receive some more increments at the pumps, you are going to increase prices, even after the 15% increase recently. And with the finance minister has also spoken, there's a likelihood that e-levy, if it doesn't pass, we are going to transfer more cost on petroleum, prices. How do you respond to that?
Good afternoon to listeners. First, I must say, Honorable Bawa and my good friend researcher from COPEC have said it all. We started this war and everybody was quiet. And otherwise, do you call it a threat? I thought it's a business strategy. Yes. If you remember, we have sacrificed a lot, and this time around, we are saying we'll share the cost with our passengers. Because we are in business, our business is crumbling, and we think the best thing to do is to revive it and make it more lucrative to the young ones coming up. So otherwise, I don't think it's a threat. It's the truth. If I tell you the truth and you cry, it's better than telling you that lies to be laughing. This time around, we've stated it clearly that the past we have to wait about 25-30% upward adjustment for this time round, we have made it clear that we are waiting for 8.8.
Are you reading strategies of government
we are more than serious.
Not increasing fuel prices maybe at 30% at a go and doing it bits and pieces, and that's why you're also devising the strategy?
Well, we are working. Have you ever seen, since you were born? I'm even looking at you today like somebody who is more than one person. Since you were born, have you ever seen somebody working backwards before? The answer is no. We are all working, and we are working for progress. So we are coolly waiting for the 8.8, and we'll come out with another upward adjustment. We've said it, and that is how our business should run. So this is what we are going to do. I wish by next week the fuel price will hit 8.8 on a liter, and we'll just assemble ourselves, look at the...
You're praying for us to hit by next week?
I'm praying, yes. If somebody is supposed to be controlling it, we are saying we have crude oil. Honorable Bawa said it. My brother from COPEC Research also said it. But we have crude oil here. What are they doing? The price is quoted. That is how we are going to sell it. They are now selling more than that. What is government doing to rescue us? Those who uses the fuel more than any other person.
I am at a loss at what type of fuel, crude, for example, that we get from the upstream from the international market. What type of fuel do we do? Is it different from what we're producing? And there's the argument that actually, when we just put it out that, we'll have our crude prices going up, we are not being very honest with the issue, because the type of crude will give you different prices. Is that true?
I think most of the imported products, per the regulation, MPA allows for what we call 50 ppm of sulfur content. That is the quality of product to be imported into the country. And we are talking about finished products.
Yes.
And then what TOR, the Moro refinery, does is 1500 ppm. That's the sulfur content, because that's the level or the capacity of TOR. And MPA may be thinking that maybe in future TOR could refine better products for us. That is
TOR
what
is 1500 ppm.
Yeah, 1500 ppm. That's part per million of sulfur content. That is what is in our system now, currently. But what we export is in crude, not in finished product.
Okay.
Maybe we may export certain finished products to some of the landlord countries like Burkina, Mali, through our depot that's the boss depot in Bolga. That is what we export. But mostly, those we export out of country are crude, right, which are not finished. They are not refined. And that is why people are calling for that. In the short and medium term, we need to retool TOR so that... And the funny thing is that in 2014, when KK Sapon was there, KK Sapon refined about 11 million barrels in that particular year. We could not do much, but when Wadakoso came, also did around in around 2014, 15, 16.
And he was preparing, or I think he made provision for reserves.
Yeah, so he did around 7 million barrels. But
of reserves?
Of refining.
Of refining,
TOR refining. The saddest part is that when Wadaku left, KK Sapon did best, Wadaku did better. And now, the last time we had a contract was with BP in 2018 under Isaac Osei, which was 948,000 barrels. So, an entity, a state entity that could do million barrels a year, in 2018 only did 900, not even up to a million. So it tells us there's a problem there. So in the short term, if government actually want to stabilize prices, I think TOR can do about 40 to 50% of our local consumption. And even if TOR does that, then even our currency will appreciate somewhat against the dollar. You see, normally when the argument comes on board, people are mentioning international market prices. But COPEC, we think that the depreciation of the currency is more consequential than hikes international market price of crude product or finished product. Yes.
Hold on, you explain that. Let me take a quick break. When I come back, and I'll give you the chance, some minutes to complete that, and then we can wrap up. I'll be back shortly. Welcome back. You're watching Good Afternoon Ghana. We're dealing with the fuel prices and its situation or impact that it's having on us now. You are talking about the number of OMCs we have and how they are cutting out their marketing.
Petroleum export price increase locally. The concerns are that we just target commercial transport operators, but they are not only the end users of petroleum products. There's AGI. And of late, you've realized that Ghana Statistical Service has published that producer price inflation is on the increase. I think now it's about 16.7 or so percent compared to previous years. Inflation itself, which is the consumer side, increased from in May last year 7.5% to in January 13.9, right? So it tells you that standard of living is high. So when we target these people, we shouldn't. Now let's come to the OMC also, and Abass knows it. Because prices are increasing, right, due to currency depreciation, CD depreciation, and international market price hikes, and also a constant tax factor and margin on taxes put together at 2 cedis 43 pesos on petrol and 2 cedis 41 pesos on per liter on diesel. Now, OMCs are also now struggling to cope with competition. So, for example, if today the realistic price on the market should have been 8 Ghana cedis 80 pesos today, but Total Energy Ghana is selling at 8 Ghana cedis, I think 29 pesos or so. Yes. And Shell, Vivo Energy is also doing 8 Ghana cedis, 29 pesos. But the actual price they should have sold the product on the market should have been 8 Ghana cedis, 80 pesos per liter. So it tells you that this competition is making OMCs or PSPs reduce their marketers' margin, or maybe BDCs reducing their suppliers' margin, premium. So when they reduce it, the necessary investment we need in this particular downstream sector is also shrinking. And when investment in this sector is shrinking, we are talking of safety issues in this sector. And apart from safety issues in this sector, we are also talking about future uncertainties that may hit this particular sector if they don't get the necessary investment in the sector. For example, if today OMCs are reducing their margins, they are reducing their profit, they are maybe selling below break-even point, how much will they get in future to even buy product from BDCs? How much will BDCs get to even import products into this economy? And that is why some countries, closer, nearby countries, I was reading something from Togo, where Togo, the trade minister has instructed its petroleum service providers, even the whole petroleum downstream, that they should not increase price. It is not a subsidized regime, but they are telling them that we are not going to impose additional taxes on it, so don't reduce any price on it. Yeah, if you go to Nigeria, as we're speaking, and Abass knows that, the Nigerian economy in 2021 projected that, even put it in their 2022 budget, that they were going to take subsidies off their market, because the World Bank, IMF, most international organizations were advising them that the subsidy regime in Nigeria was costing the Nigerian economy $7 billion. Now, Nigeria also said, okay, if World Bank and everybody is advising us that we were losing $7 billion annually through a subsidy program, we're going to take it off in 2022. However, when the Nigerian economy realized that prices on the international market were rising, skyrocketing, they said, no, we can't go that way, because if you go that way, most of our people will be in poverty. Because anytime inflation increases, the standard of living of the average Ghanaian worsens. So Nigeria economy didn't do that. They now came back and said, okay, we are not taking the subsidies again. We are reintroducing $7 billion into the economy to subsidize for products. And today, 7 billion equivalent in Ghana cedis is around 46 billion Ghana cedis. Yes. Right? So 46 billion Ghana cedis is what Nigeria is using to inject into the petroleum downstream to subsidize price. And for that, it is clear. Nigeria, for example, a gallon of petrol, which is a 4.5 liters, is 12 Ghana cedis, equivalent of 12 Ghana cedis.
But you OMCs are advising against subsidies.
I'm not saying we should subsidize. You know, when you heard Honorable Bawa spoke, he said that there's a windfall. And windfall is not only this year. In 2021, government budgeted that it was going to benchmark. Our benchmark crude price was $54.75. Averagely, in that particular year, Ghana sold our product, averagely, $66 per barrel. In 2022, government projected that it was going to sell our product, or is going to sell our product at $61.23. As we're speaking today, crude oil international market price is $113 per barrel. That is almost more than half of, or 100% of what government projected. So we COPEC are arguing that if government is realizing these huge sums of money, right, and taking into consideration the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, where monies go to petroleum holding funds, go to stabilization or annual budget funding amount, right? If you look at it, the remaining balance from this could be used, right, to offset certain debt in the energy sector, and then government goes and says, okay, let's take 1 Ghana cedis, 50 pesos from the price build-up. If today government decides to take 1 Ghana cedi 50 pesos from the price build-up, that means that petroleum products will be sold at around 7 Ghana cedis, and some even could sell at 6 Ghana cedis, right? So whilst government is getting higher revenues from international market hikes, government is not cushioning, unlike what Nigeria did.
Right. Edward Bawa, are you there? Abass, we have the last word, but Edward, are you there? Yeah, so, okay, so with what Benjamin has said, what do we do? Your committee, according to you, government is actually being very shady with accounting for what's being accrued within the petroleum sector. So where do we go from here? Because if there's no transparency, then our drivers will also have no choice but to go with whatever they want to do as far as, transport fares are concerned, which would definitely have replicating effect on other areas.
Okay, so there are 2 quick things I'm going to talk about. The first one is that I have just taken a decision and I filed a question today where I am asking the Minister of Finance to come and tell us how what strategies they are putting in place to reduce the pressure of the increases of petroleum products, particularly in the area of taxes and then the stabilization of the city. So there's an urgent question that I filed today, as inviting the Minister of Finance to come and tell us that. 2, I think that beyond just the transparency, and we're just talking about government, MPA itself, and if I don't know whether Abass is still online or he's gone.
Abass is off.
MPA itself must be very transparent with us, and I'll explain to you why. MPA
I asked him 2 major questions, and all the questions were a little. He was just trying to tell me how it's not in their place to make decisions.
Yes. Look, the point is that look, in terms of tracking our products, they have some tracking devices they may talk about. They have the fuel marking margin that they put there. There are other measures they have put in place to ensure quality assurance, and then also ensure ensure the fact that people pay taxes.
Yeah.
Now, but they again put in the price build-up what they call the fuel market margin that they put. I'm not too sure the figure. The figure I think is somewhere around
5 pesos
just
per
a
liter.
minute. I think it's 5
Benjamin is saying 5
5
pesos per liter.
Yes. Yes. My fuel market. This is 5 pesos per liter. So you see that they themselves, they must begin to start realizing that look, there are some things they can do, because I've seen their reports. There are a lot of projects they are doing, all in terms of trying to ensure that petroleum products, one, the quality is high, to make sure that they track every product and make sure that the right taxes are paid. Yeah. And again, under the policy of zonalization. So they've introduced some of them that are duplication of efforts. So if you have that, this particular margin that is put there, MPS to take a second look at it. Abass knows that I have said that to them at the committee level. I've told them at the committee level that this thing is just simply not, it doesn't need to have a space here. Because my sister, do you know that even with the fuel market margin that they put there, which is supposed to ensure quality assurance and then to ensure that taxes are paid, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, Senor Jose's group, they came out in their report. They indicated that the country still lost 1.9 billion, cedis of tax that should have been paid based on the volumes of consumption that had come. And a greater part of it was as a result of, one, connivance of GRA staff. 2, you have the national security. And 3, officials of the presidency. I'm not the one saying them. These are things that are captured in the document. So it tells you that even though Ghanaians are paying this amount of money for these taxes, the challenge is that we are still having to, go through to lose some of these taxes that hitherto may go to even reduce our our challenges. So me,
Right.
I am just making the point that MPA, Minister of Finance, generally they must come out clear and be a bit more transparent. And that's why this question that I have filed is an urgent question.
Yeah.
I think I can't wait to see what the Minister of Finance will come and tell me on the floor of Parliament on this question.
Right. Ibrahim Moro, you have the last word before we go. So you have told us, in fact, you've given us your point that even if it takes next week for you to increase, you will. But your last words before we get out of
Yes. It is somebody's responsibility to make sure we work happily in our country, and the way things are moving, we are no longer prepared to sacrifice, else we won't be in business again. So something must be done. As I will thank Honorable Bawa and Brother Benjamin for pointing out some of the faults where officials must have a second look at and make sure they rectify those things and control the fuel. Else, we are repeating.
Do we have some of your drivers out of job already?
So
many.
many, because working without getting anything, they opt for another job elsewhere. So many.
In your group or in your association, averagely, how many drivers?
The telling lies, if I'm to mention a particular number, it might not be accurate.
But you know that some have lost their
Oh,
jobs.
so many have changed from driving to other businesses.
All right.
They've said it all, so I'm very happy. I've relaxed, and
I can tell you're relaxing like myself.
yes. But I was keenly looking at you because it looks like you are now many, not single. So maybe we'll talk about that off air.
That's a very, I don't know why he keeps saying that. Ibrahim Abass Moro is the National Communications Officer for GPRTU. And also, I had Benjamin Nsiah, who is Head of Research at COPEC. And then also Abass Ibrahim Tasunti. That's his name. I like it, Tasunti.
And a lot closing remarks from me.
Head of pricing at MPA. What do you want to say? My time is up.
I just want to tell government that this is a time where any government, any responsible government, alleviates its people from poverty. And I think in alleviating your people from poverty, petroleum products, the price of petroleum product is one component.
Yeah.
So government should reduce their prices.
In fact, it's a very major component.
Yes, major component. Government should reduce their prices so that at least the welfare of Ghanaians will be improved. Government should not only be concentrated in targeting revenue. No. When you target revenue and your people are poor, you still spend this revenue on them. So just take it off so the price will come low and their welfare improves.
My interest really is the sanitation levy. What are we using it for?
Okay, so sanitation levy, for example, 2021 generated around, they said they generated around 450 million into that particular space. But we don't know what it's been used for. Maybe in future, government will come to tell us what.
Well, Abambire Bawa also joined us. He is a member of parliament and a member of the Mines and Energy Committee, who also joined us via Zoom. My name is Nsiah Fampofo. I moderated whatever we talked about today. Thank you for watching. We're back again on Friday with Good Afternoon, Ghana.